welcome to the deep dive. Today we're going to be diving into period odor.
Right, yeah, period odor.
Yeah.
It's something that so many people experience, right? And so many people have questions about.
Absolutely. And I think there is like a lot of shame and stigma around this topic that makes people hesitant to even talk about it, you know?
Absolutely.
So we've combed through a bunch of sources to get to the bottom of this.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And what's normal, what might be a sign that something needs a little more attention. And most importantly, we're going to give you some practical ways that you can feel more comfortable and confident during your period.
Exactly. I think one of the most important things to start with is just understanding what period blood actually is. Like, what is it made of?
Right. So I think a lot of people think that period blood is, just like regular blood from a cut, but it's actually a lot more than that.
Okay.
So it's actually a mix. It's an unfertilized egg.
Okay.
It's blood, and then it's tissues from the uterine lining. Yeah. So
Okay.
all of that's coming out, and it's interacting with your vaginal environment. So with that whole combination, it's completely normal for there to be a slight odor. Think of it as like any other bodily process. There's usually some scent involved.
Yeah.
It's normal.
Totally.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, so we've established that it's, made up of a lot of different things. So, what exactly is it that's causing that slight odor?
Right. So it's not just, the components of the blood itself that can create a smell, but it's also the bacteria that naturally live in your vagina and the vagina's own acidic environment.
Okay.
Yeah, so the pH. So both of those things play a role in how things smell.
Okay.
So yeah, a healthy period, it can have a very mild scent of blood or even a faint metallic tang.
Okay.
Yeah. And so that metallic smell that often comes from the iron in the blood that mixes with those natural vaginal bacteria, like the bacteria that are supposed to be there.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So it's kind of like, I don't know, almost like a copper penny kind of a smell.
Yes. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
I think I have noticed that before. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. And with other aspects of your cycle, the odor can also change a little bit from day to day.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But the key thing is that generally these normal period odors are pretty mild.
Okay.
And they're typically not something that others would notice. And good hygiene is usually all it takes to manage them and keep you feeling comfortable.
Right. Yeah. That makes sense.
Yeah.
So, we were talking about all these different types of odors. Our sources actually break down some very specific types of period odors.
Yeah.
That I think will be helpful to kind of go through.
Mm-hmm.
So we've already touched on this one, but the metallic smell.
Yeah.
Is there anything else to kind of know about that?
Right. So we talked about it a little bit already, but it's super common just because of the iron in the blood, right?
Yeah.
And it shouldn't be something that worries you unless you notice it persisting for a long time after your period has ended. That could be a sign of something else going on. But during your period, a metallic scent is totally normal.
Okay. That's good to know.
Yeah.
The next one that they mentioned is a rotten or bad smell, which sounds concerning to me.
Right. Yeah. A bad or rotten smell is definitely often a sign that something's off.
Yeah.
And one of the most common causes of that type of odor is actually a foreign body.
Okay.
So the most common example of that is a tampon that has been accidentally left in the vagina for too long.
Okay. So what happens if you think that might be the case? What should you do?
Right. So the first thing is to try and remove it yourself if possible. You can gently feel for the string. But if you can't locate it or can't remove it easily, it's so important that you go and seek medical help.
Right.
Because leaving a tampon in for a long time can cause infection, and you definitely don't want that.
Yeah,
No.
definitely not.
Okay.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay. So the next one on the list that they have is a sweet smell.
Yeah, a sweet smell. It might sound weird, but a slightly sweet odor is actually pretty normal.
Okay.
And it's just, again, because of the acidic environment and the bacteria that thrive there.
Okay.
So that's another one that you shouldn't really worry about.
Okay, cool. And then another one that they mention is a body odor type of smell.
Yeah. So this one is a little bit different because it involves the sweat glands in the genital area.
Okay.
So specifically the apocrine glands, which are different from the glands that release the sweat after a workout.
Okay.
Yeah. So the apocrine sweat is triggered by stress.
Okay.
Or anxiety.
Oh, wow.
And when that sweat mixes with the bacteria on your skin, it can create that body odor type smell.
Okay. So if you are stressed during your period, that could contribute to a more noticeable odor.
Exactly. Yeah. It's all connected.
Oh, wow. Okay. Interesting. Okay, so we've talked about, the metallic, a bad smell, a sweet smell, a body odor smell. Now, this next one, our sources really, really emphasize this one, a fishy smell.
Right. So unlike the other smells that we've talked about, a fishy odor is often a sign of a medical issue.
Okay.
And most commonly, it's bacterial vaginosis,
Okay.
which is a type of vaginal infection. So it's really important for you to know that this smell is usually stronger than a typical mild period odor.
Gotcha.
So if you notice that you have like a persistent fishy smell, it's really important that you talk to your doctor.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, that makes sense. The sources made it seem like that one's really different. So, like, the intensity and the specific nature of it is something to, like, really pay attention to.
Exactly.
Okay. So the last type of smell that they mentioned here is one that some people describe as death-like,
Yeah.
which, like, that sounds pretty alarming.
I know. Yeah.
So, like, what's the deal with that one?
Right. So it sounds really concerning. But the sources actually reassure us that this is often just, again, due to the process of the blood and the tissues leaving the vagina, along with the bacteria that are already there.
Okay.
So while it might be a stronger odor than usual, remember, bacteria in the vagina is normal.
Right.
But the levels of bacteria can, like, fluctuate.
Gotcha. Okay.
Yeah.
So I feel like we've talked about, like, when certain smells are okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
when to, like, not be worried. But, like, overall, when should you be worried about period odor?
Right. So the key takeaway here is that a strong odor, anything that feels different or way stronger than your usual period smell, should be a sign for you to like check in with yourself.
Okay.
It's often a sign that there might be an infection, like we talked about with the fishy odor.
Yeah.
That's a really good example of like when you need to see a doctor.
Right. And it's not just the smell itself, right? Like, there might be other things going on, too, that you should be paying attention to.
Totally. Yeah. So concerning odors are often accompanied by other symptoms, like maybe you're experiencing unusual vaginal discharge.
Okay.
So like anything different in the color or the consistency or the amount, or maybe you're experiencing pelvic pain that isn't like your normal cramps.
Yeah.
So when you're experiencing that combination of like the strong odor and these other symptoms, that's when you really want to like check in and like get professional advice.
Right. Okay. Totally.
Yeah.
So are there any, like, practical tips from our sources, to manage normal period odors and feel more
Yeah.
comfortable?
So like the foundation of everything is really good hygiene practices.
Okay.
So like showering or bathing regularly, gently cleansing the external vaginal area with mild soap and water,
Yeah.
all of that can make a really big difference.
Yeah.
And then like changing your pads or tampons frequently.
Yeah.
That's crucial for managing odor and preventing that bacteria from multiplying too much.
Right.
And choosing like breathable underwear, cotton is a really good example of that. Okay.
That can help improve airflow and reduce moisture buildup, which can contribute to odor.
Right. Okay. Yeah. So like pretty simple stuff, but like important.
Exactly. Yeah.
Cool. Okay. So to wrap up, we've learned that like a slight period odor is usually not something to be concerned about. It's due to that natural combination of blood, tissue, and your vaginal environment.
Exactly.
Different smells, like we talked about, metallic or even sweet, can have specific explanations and are often totally normal.
Right.
But it's those like really strong odors or unusual odors, especially when combined with other symptoms, that might signal a need to check in with a healthcare provider.
Exactly.
And like good hygiene is really key to like managing those everyday period odors.
Exactly. And I think the, like, big takeaway from this is that understanding your body and what's normal for you is so important.
Totally.
And, like, never hesitate to seek out information or advice if you have any concerns.
Right. Absolutely. Like it's so much better to be safe than sorry.
So, like, I think one thing for all of you listening to, like, kind of think about is we've been talking about, odor and how it fluctuates throughout your cycle. What if you, like, paid more attention to the other ways that your body kind of changes and, like, what that could tell you about your overall health?
That's such a good point. I think it's definitely something to think about.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for the deep dive today.
Of course. Thanks for having me.
And we'll see you next time.
See you next time.